Welcome to Agora this week. So this open platform to share insights, knowledge, experiences beyond all borders. So today we will tackle an issue that has alerted many international organizations, which is the misinformation and the spread of fake news about COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm pleased today to introduce Ayaz Ahmed Siddiqui, a PhD candidate at the School of Communication at the Hong Kong Baptist University, soon to teach at the Business School of Karachi. So he will share his knowledge and expertise in mediatization studies through his topic, dealing with misinformation in the age of media abundance, with a special focus, of course, on the impact of misinformation during the COVID-19 pandemic. So as always, after 30 minutes of presentation, we will open the talk to the public and then we can discuss it together. Thank you very much, Ayaz, for being with us tonight. You can start your presentation.
Thank you, Naveen. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. Hi, everyone. So this is the topic that I'm going to be presenting today, and I'm going to just head right into it. Quickly, my work, my research in a glance. I have been looking at how, sorry, just opening the, yes, I've been looking at the changes and strategies of opposition groups in Pakistan and with response to the changing media environment. For that, I've made case studies of these opposition groups before and after liberalization policies. And I've also done a content analysis of news bulletins during the same period to better understand Pakistan's media system. And I've also studied news organizations' ethical best practices in Pakistan as part of a Hong Kong UGC funded project. And well, so this is to tell you my qualifications to speak on this subject. I've not researched specifically on misinformation, but I have been in the field for some time, so that's what I'm going to be talking about. Also, this presentation is not going to be a heavy-going academic presentation. I have designed it as I would speak, as I speak to my students. The contents today would be the global challenge which is posed by misinformation and how a functional perspective on the media can be used to address it, and then a practical way of doing it. That's something I will illustrate. Right. So I think we can all agree that media shapes our reality in the way we consume it, perhaps 24/7 through our, we depend on it for our information seeking behavior when we consume news, and also in the way we communicate with each other right now, for instance, on this platform, or through private messages, through email conversations. We are surrounded by these messages, and we use these various mediums to get knowledge, of course, and also in our professional lives in many ways. So it's very important to be critical about these mediums. And what happens when we don't do that? So COVID-19 presents for us a excellent case study to illustrate this. Everyone can hear me? I just want to have a quick test. Okay, great. So COVID-19 is also referred as an infodemic by the United Nations on account of the deluge of messages that are being sent by citizens related to COVID. And then we have a team of fact checkers based in Hong Kong who um, found that this rumor how warm water can kill the virus was circulating, and it was found on in the social media forums in many countries around the world, developing as well as developed. Now, it's a very small claim, but it has universal appeal, and that appeal can have potentially dangerous consequences for the management of the virus. Journalists, experts, or anyone who critically consume media thinks this information is harmless and they ignore it, but then many people do not do that, and then they do not take other precautions, and then they're going online telling everyone, hey, look, everything is fine, which is quite bad. I've included a link for the Pointers fact-checking database, which is a coalition of fact-checkers in many different countries who have compiled these fact checks. So in case anyone is interested, here's another example of. Okay, so this is interesting. This map came out in a research paper from a university in the UK, and it basically maps how people travel around the world through airplanes. But many people believed that this is how people traveled the world from the city of Wuhan before it got shut down in January. And many news organizations picked up this map and carried the story, right? So important thing to note here is that if the first example was of messages being shared by ordinary people, the second example is of these messages being shared by news organizations, mainstream news organizations, right? So this is some examples of COVID-19 problematic media content. But the problem of this problematic content predates COVID-19. And I should have given a trigger warning before saying this, so I apologize for this. So this is the story of the mosque at Ground Zero. Came out in 2010. I'm going to quickly show you the actual story. If you can see my computer screen. Came out in New York Post, which is a tabloid based in New York. I've highlighted some aspect of this report and then just summarize them here. So very quickly, mosque rises over Ground Zero, a Muslim house of worship, a monster mosque. Just have a note of these keywords that I'm using. Community board stupidly green lights a mosque, and protest rally against the establishment of this mosque by human rights group Stop Islamization of America by Pamela Geller, and then making analogies with how, what if Japanese decides to open a cultural center across Pearl Harbor, and towards the end of the report, just move it away, right? And this is coming out of New York Post, which says, which in the tagline of this tabloid, it says that news doesn't have to be boring to be news. Now, if you do a bit of digging around about the actual story and how more responsible coverage of this controversy has happened, you'll find that actually it's the mosque is not being established on site of Ground Zero, but a few blocks away in a building that also got damaged by the debris from the terrorist attack. And and the planners of the mosque actually call it a cultural center for Muslims living in Lower Manhattan. And this cultural center contains an auditorium, a theater, a swimming pool, basketball court, a memorial for the victims of 9/11, and a prayer area for Muslim community. And it is the reason why they are establishing it is to create interfaith harmony, particularly in the time when it is most required, right? And as a result of this disinformation campaign, you have this cultural center now converted into a condominium of luxury apartments when I checked, and the prey area converted into a cultural center, Islamic cultural museum, which is yet to start. Now, here's the deal. These stories seemingly follow rules of professional journalism. In any journalism school or any reporter, this is journalism 101. Especially the latter two stories: high news value, timely, significant impact on society. When journalists are writing these stories, they have these elements in mind. Pyramid style of reporting, of putting in the most important information first, and the more contextual information down below. All these stories are seemingly credible. They are getting extensive media coverage, and they are quoting experts on relevant sources. By the way, Pamela Geller, they are quoting her as an expert on, a human rights activist, whereas the Southern Poverty Law Center in the US is an extremist watchdog organization, labels her as an extremist. So although they seem to be following the rules of professional journalism, but we know intuitively that there is something dysfunctional about this kind of media content. And I think this man over here has popularized this notion of, should we say, fake news, given a whole new vocabulary to this kind of dysfunctional content by using this term. The conventional wisdom goes that fake news is highly prevalent in online spaces, and it poses a serious challenge to democracy by more liberally oriented people, and therefore it's a challenge for governance. But what exactly is fake news? It can be broadly defined as fabricated or false information masquerading as legitimate news. Now, we know that President Trump, or soon to be ex-President Trump, uses this as a broad way to attack his opponents. And this is no coincidence, because fake news is, as I will tell you, is a very small part of the broader information ecosystem. And it's not new. It predates the internet, and it certainly predates Donald Trump's presidency. A more accurate characterization of what he's talking about is misinformation, right? Which is various forms of reconfigured information using true information, which is spun or twisted, recontextualized, and reworked. So, current research on COVID-19, which has looked at information that was already flagged as problematic, found that within that flagged information, most of it was actually misinformation, much less was fabricated information. And people tend to engage much more with misinformation than they do with fabricated information. Right? People generally have that intuitive sense to not engage with all right falsehoods.